And we are back. Thank you for tuning in. As normal, Testosterone Fantasy Sports. We love to have you here joining us on the show. Of course, Week 16 fantasy playoff time is here. But before we delve into the rest of the matchups, we want to talk a little bit about this brand new hot item that we're featuring right here on our set. You've seen it so far. It's the Feed the Beast t-shirt. Jeff, tell the people at home where they can find one.
Well, it's super easy. Just go onto our website at testosteronesports.com, and there you'll see a nice scan of it. It's super nice. You can see them right here behind Jason here, and they say Feed the Beast all day. It's got Adrian's number on there, and he's our favorite player in my favorite player in the whole league history now. And so we met this guy. He's super cool. His name's Vince Barrett, and he owns St. Croix Prints, screen printing, and you can see a link on our site to his. And so he had this idea, and he brought him to us, so we're selling them for the holiday season.
Yeah, so jump on there, buy some of your relatives a Feed the Beast t-shirt, support the team, support the show, help us stay on the air, guys. We enjoy doing the show, but there are some costs we have to defray, and all of the money that we get from this goes directly to help keeping us on the air for season 5. Yeah, exactly.
Wait, I thought that went to me. No?
Incorrect. Well, let's dive into the matchups, guys, here. The first matchup we're going to talk about is actually the Saturday night game. Dallas traveling to Carolina to face the Panthers. When you look at this game, there are some interesting dynamics, the least of which is certainly not Tony Romo's injured thumb. Jason, break this matchup down a little bit for us. What do you expect Dallas coming off of a humbling loss to Philly?
Carolina actually has a very solid pass defense, and Dallas needs to get back to running the football a little bit. Last week was ridiculous. Tony Romo not playing well. Blame Jessica Simpson. Blame whatever you want. He just didn't play well, and I think they ran the ball 15 times. When you have Julius Jones and, more importantly, Marion Barber, I mean, give these guys the rock and let them do some damage, especially in a close game like that. I would hope they try to get back to that this week because, as Matt Hasselbeck found out the hard way, Carolina has a pretty solid secondary.
This team has all the feel of a major spoiler here at the end. This game seems like such a trap to me for the Cowboys. 6 points against a divisional opponent. I mean, come on. This offense is much better than that, and I totally agree. They abandoned the run way too quickly, but I really thought that Tony Romo was just off his game. And if you want to say he had one eye on the center and one eye in the stands to see Jessica or whatever, I just think that he wasn't hitting his open wide receivers. He was throwing to the wrong guy several times. And then when I've seen him in games past have a slow start like this, you kind of use Jason Witten as a security blanket. And he wasn't able to find Witten nearly enough to get comfortable. Because then, usually the underneath stuff is good. He finds Owens or Creighton deep, and that just didn't happen. So several times Owens got behind the defense, and there was just no pass there.
Yeah, one of the first big plays of the game, Owens could have potentially hit like a 80-yard touchdown catch, and Romo, this was before the thumb injury had even happened, overthrew him by like a good 8 or 10 yards down the sideline. Now, Owens is an interesting cat because if he gets the ball and they win, he's much like Randy Moss. He loves to play and he's happy and excited. If they lose this game, I start to wonder if this team has a little bit of a touch of collapsibility to them here down the stretch, but I don't think that's going to happen. I do feel what you're saying a little bit with the touch of a trap game for them, but I think, Jeff, losing last week was all the trap they needed. I think they're going to come out and smoke Carolina here.
I can't disagree too much. I think, offensively, like I said, they need to pound the ball a little bit, but I just don't think Carolina has enough firepower to compete with the Cowboys. And Steve Smith got back on track to some extent last week with Matt Moore throwing the ball. But, I mean, can you really start Steve Smith with Matt Moore as the starting quarterback? I mean,
I once had a babysitter named Matt Moore when I was like in 3rd grade or something, but I don't know who Matt Moore is.
Apparently he's another quarterback from the Carolina Panthers who stinks.
Yeah, exactly. Cleveland traveling to Cincinnati in a game that was a lovely game for fantasy owners earlier in the season. The two quarterbacks combined for 11 passing touchdowns in that game. Now, last week, of course, Derek Anderson disappointed fantasy owners throwing through the snow. Jeff, I want to know, is Derek Anderson going to get back on track here? And can Carson Palmer kind of get some of that magic going again?
Well, these two teams both love to play offense and hate to play defense. And we've seen these teams combined for like 90 points or something in the years past. So I think there's a lot of fantasy love here, and I like the passing game from both teams, and I also like Jamal Lewis to get going.
Jason, what do you think?
A little bit worried about the Bengals right now. They couldn't get it done against the 49ers. I think Carson Palmer has 1 or 2 touchdown passes over the last 3 weeks. it's hard not to start your Bengals against the Browns defense because they've been pretty awful against the pass. On the Browns side of the ball, Derek Anderson should go off again. The Bengals can't stop anyone. They made Sean Hill look like a respectable quarterback last week.
Yeah, the guy I like here in this matchup is Braylon Big Play Edwards. This guy leads the league with over 17 yards per catch. I think he's going to get deep at least one time in this game against a very suspect secondary. But the wide receiver here that has me a little bit puzzled is TJ Hushmanzada. Now, this guy has always kind of been, the yin to Chad Johnson's yang. He's the more reserved, more controlled player. Last week, he blew up at Marvin Lewis during the middle of the game, screaming and showing up his own coach. You look at his stats, and it's like he scored a touchdown in his first 8 games of the season. Now, Jeff, in his last 6 games, TJ Hoosh has only 1 touchdown combined over that stretch. The Bengals just seem to be falling apart here.
Well, yeah, they have all the feel to me of a team that had very high expectations who absolutely went nowhere. So now they play in a really tough division. That AFC North is a black and blue type of mentality there, and so he's had to face tough defenses. He's got his bell rung a couple times. I personally like to call Hushmanzada the Cher to Chad Johnson's Sonny.
Nice.
Because, he's a little bit taller and he's got Cher's like hips.
And the long hair.
Yeah, right.
I like to call him the better receiver, period.
Yeah.
I think he's a better receiver than Chad Johnson is. The thing that's just destroyed Cincinnati this year is the lack of Rudy Johnson and him just not being 100%. That's a situation where I think the run opens up the pass for them, and it just hasn't happened.
So would you guys think that Jamal Lewis is the better play out of these 2 running backs here?
Oh, for sure, without question.
I definitely agree. Jamal's getting featured right now, getting more carries, and Rudy is prone to just disappearing. So, one question I've heard is there's some people who think there's a rumor that the Bengals might go a different direction in their running game here next season. So I don't know if there might be a new name in that backfield or not, but something that we're going to want to keep an eye on here over the offseason.
I think they need to go in a different direction in general. And Marvin Lewis has lost control of this team. They quit 3 weeks ago. I really think this is one of Marvin Lewis's last 2 games in Cincinnati. Could be wrong, though.
And for the dog pound, with their win last week and the surprising loss by the Pittsburgh Steelers, Cleveland is now tied for that division.
Crazy.
Who'd have thunk it? At 9-5, they're really, really doing well. And I just think Romeo Crennel's got it going on. And in my opinion, if it wasn't for Mike Tomlin and what he was doing, I guess I would think that he's the best coach in that division.
Wow, those are big words there. Romeo Crennel, I think, definitely a favorite for Coach of the Year with the way he's turned this team around. So the next matchup to talk about, Kansas City at Detroit. Now the Lions are definitely a team that has imploded here over the second half of the season. After a 6-2 start, guys, they look like they're going to finish on an 8-game losing streak, and it seemed like they really fired their final proverbial bullet against Dallas a couple weeks ago.
Right.
Jason, they got absolutely filleted open last week by Tomlinson and company. Does Detroit just get blown out here, or does Kansas City not have any firepower?
I don't think Kansas City has much more to play for than they do. They don't have Roy Williams anymore. That hurts. He is officially out for the year now that they're out of playoff contention. The good news for fantasy owners is that the Lions have said they're going to stick with John Kitna for the remainder of the season, so you don't have to worry about Dan Orlovsky coming in during one of the last 2 weeks.
Thank God.
Yeah, and maybe he'll turn out to be the real deal, but I guess you don't want to rock the boat if you get. But, at this point, you're probably only looking at starting Kevin Jones anyway, maybe Kelvin Johnson in a flex position. But it's still nice to know that at least you're going to have John Kitna in there.
Now, Jeff, Larry Johnson has missed 6 straight starts. He's only got 3 touchdowns over the course of the entire season, has definitely been a fantasy disappointment. They're saying LJ might be able to suit up for this game. If he does suit up, do fantasy owners play him in a championship-type situation, or is that just way too risky?
Well, I tell you, it really kind of depends on who your matchups are. If you're the kind of team that has like 3 total studs and then you're a little bit weak, you might have a guy like Chester who you've been depending on lately, or a Sean Alexander, which is a situation that I've been dealing with. And in my championship game, if I had LJ, I'd sure be thinking about playing him.
Yeah, against the Lions, they can't stop the run at all. No one said whether LJ is going to play, but he might.
I don't do it, guys. I avoid it. I just think even if he comes back, you're probably looking at 8 to 10 carries. I don't think he's going to be the workhorse who goes out there and gets you 25 carries. I really avoid it.
His ceiling is going to be like 40 yards and a touchdown, I think.
Right. Kind of like what he did in week 1 against Houston after the late start.
Coincidentally, guys, in Africa, I heard this story that tribal hunters back in the day, they would go out when they want to kill a lion that's been bothering their their village, they'd go out and they'd put a huge hunting knife and they'd stick it in the ground and they'd pour blood on it. And so then the blood would waft, the smell would waft to the lion. He'd come up to it and he'd lick it and it would taste good. So he'd continuously lick it. And slowly it would shred his tongue, but he wouldn't be able to tell. And slowly bleed out. And that's what's happening to Detroit right now.
Yeah,
They're
no
just
kidding.
bleeding out slowly.
8 losses in a row.
They did it to themselves. They're licking the knife and bleeding out slowly.
I thought you were going to tell us the Childress Water Buffalo story.
Ever since they said we're going to win 12 games and go to the playoffs.
I didn't know where you were going with that.
That team needs to just shut up and go play football, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Houston traveling to Indianapolis to face a team that is still the Super Bowl champions. People tend to forget that Indianapolis wears the rings right now. Yeah, there are a couple other bigger stories going on in the NFL, but Indy flying under the radar. You got to start their must-start players from a fantasy perspective. But Houston, Jason, really starting to turn the corner defensively. They've got some studs along that D-line now.
Oh, Mario Williams should be in the Pro Bowl. He just peaked a little bit too late this season, but that guy, if he continues to play at this pace, is going to be a perennial All-Pro guy.
Right, with 13 sacks. I mean, everybody thought that he was kind of a bust, and the Texans should have took Vince Young, and the Texans should have took Reggie Bush. Well, Vince has really taken his time to develop, and now Reggie is proving that he's not really featurable. So with Mario Williams getting those 13 sacks, that could turn around a defense that has been totally dismal since their inception, and that's the key, in my opinion, for them to make any kind of waves in that division.
Yeah, and they've got another young guy there, Amobi Okoye, who's played well so far this rookie season too. So
really young guy.
Yeah, that team is starting to turn things around on the defensive side of the ball. But on the offensive side of the ball, they got a playmaker, a guy nobody talks about a lot on the national scene, but Andre Johnson getting it done for fantasy owners lately, Jeff.
Yeah, Andre Johnson's been great. He put up good numbers last week. I think he got into the end zone, had
almost
around 80
twice.
yards. You know, what's interesting to me is the Colts are number one at stopping the pass in the league. They only allow 162 yards through the air. And so to me, that makes me think that this could be a little bit of a trap type of a matchup for Andre Johnson. Now, I may be a little biased because I'm playing against him in a Super Bowl. So that's where I like to, defer to you guys who are going to be a little more objective about that.
Well, it could be a tough matchup, but I mean, you're not going to bench Andre Johnson.
You can't.
He's been almost Moss-like when he's been healthy this year. Stick with him, and it hasn't even mattered who his quarterback is. He's put up big numbers with Sage Rosenfels and Matt Schaub.
And of course, you're going to continue to bench Marvin Harrison. This guy has only 1 touchdown on the season. He's had 4 catches since week number 3. Hasn't suited up in 8 games. Probably not going to play in this game. What do you hear?
I don't think there's any need for him to. They've locked up their playoff spot. I believe they clinched a bye in the first round.
Yep.
There's no need to play Harrison for them. Obviously disappointing for fantasy owners, but it'll preserve him for the playoffs, and really that's the only thing the Colts are concerned with right now.
I was really disappointed in Joseph Adai's performance last week against what I thought was a great matchup, the Oakland Raiders. So I'd be interested to watch in this game how the Colts utilize Adai. I think they need to get him going early, get him going in the passing game. He's got versatile skills, and I'm hoping he goes good. What do you guys think about that one?
It's tough to say with Adai. They don't want to start benching their key players early because they've seen how that can affect as far as momentum going into the playoffs. But Adai is the one player they do need to protect, because if they lose him, I'm not convinced that Kenton Keith could do very much damage in the playoffs.
I think the one guy they got to protect is probably Peyton Manning. But I hear what you're saying.
And I think that they need to keep Reggie Wayne healthy more than Adai, just because Wayne, in my opinion, is now a top 5 option at wide receiver, if not even better, and he's really nondescript in that way. And when Harrison comes back, there's going to be a little bit of rust. So Wayne is quintessential in their passing game. They've got Anthony Gonzalez and Dallas Clark, so they could bench him.
Gonzo has stepped up nicely. I
and
think 3
still
touchdowns
be okay
the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
He's done a very nice job, but obviously he's not ready to be the guy there. But it sounds crazy, but check your waiver wires, because this guy did nothing until the last 2 weeks. There's a chance, albeit slim, that he's still out there in some leagues.
I don't think they're going to go to the bench, our Studley guys, until the final week of the season.
One final matchup of this segment, Oakland Raiders traveling to face the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the Jaguars are a team that continue to compete at a very high level. Definitely one of the key teams in the AFC. But, guys, no Pro Bowlers on this squad. That kind of just tells you exactly what this team is all about, Jason. They play with a lot of heart, but there's really no guy that stands out above the team.
Well, the guy who's been campaigning to make his first Pro Bowl, Fred Taylor, has really stepped up nicely these last couple of weeks. I think he's done a really nice job. I think there were seasons he belonged in the Pro Bowl in the past, but not so much this year. But he is a heck of a play against this Raiders defense, which can't stop the run. Haven't been able to all year. I think you start both him and Mojo this week.
Yeah, Rasheed Mathis should go to the Pro Bowl, in my opinion. He's a pretty studly player, and I'm surprised that they don't have any Pro Bowl guys. It's just kind of like, what did the ownership from Jacksonville do to the Pro Bowl committee, to make them mad? Same thing with Oakland, you know what I'm saying? With the schedule committee. What did Oakland do to have to face this team here this week and against Jacksonville? And then last week, who is it that they got? Oh, Indy at the end of the season. That's Grizzle right there. Al Davis must have pissed someone off.
Guys, I wouldn't worry about the Pro Bowl situation. You know how that is. Somebody always ends up staying home.
Yeah.
They'll get a Jaguar on that team, and maybe even Fred Taylor.
Yeah, Fred Taylor, people scoffed at me at the beginning of the year, but I told you early in the preseason that Fred Taylor would put up better numbers than Maurice Jones-Drew this year, and it took a little while for Fred to get hot, but coming down the stretch here, he's the guy that has brought his A-game, proverbial A-game, to the forefront. So, like Jason said, don't be afraid to stick him in your lineup. He's proven himself week in and week out. So we are going to take another break right now. You're tuned into Testosterone Fantasy Sports, the Week 16 edition. Don't forget to check out our website right after the show is over, testosteronesports.com. Of course, we do the Fat Chat every single week. Jeff, what are we going to be doing on the Fat Chat this week?
Well, we just kind of all get together and we have a little powwow about who to bench and who to start. I suppose this week, since like 70% of all fantasy football players are going to be watching this week instead of playing, there's always a lot to learn for next season during the end of this season. So there's fun off-season speculation about what could happen, different unrestricted free agents. Michael Turner comes to mind, as well as Andre Johnson. So, speculation about who's going to be there. Basically, we just want to get to know everybody out there, so join us on the Fat Chat.
TestosteroneSports.com. We'll be right back right after these messages from Alex, our